Okay, so there's like a lot of games on Steam. I think it's like 60,000 or something. And there's some games with positive reviews and some with negative reviews. But to my surprise, there's actually some games out there with 0 reviews. They're just extremely hard to find. So I put together a list of 8 games with no reviews so that I can be the first person to review them. Oh, and one thing I should mention is that since I would be the first person to review these games, I can actually control what their total rating will be on the Steam store, which is pretty funny. Okay, so the first game on the list is Lost Boy, Lost Island. Boy lost an island and need to look for anyone alive and his mother and need to survive. What a great description. Okay, it looks like it's $5 and most importantly, it has no reviews. So let's go ahead and buy it. Immediately when starting Lost Boy, Lost Island, I woke up on the beach of an island. A lost island, I guess you could call it. After playing around for a little longer than I needed to, I started just running, but then I got distracted because I realized you can throw rocks.
Because I can just throw rocks?
I found out that the rocks are actually for killing innocent animals. I mean, I say innocent, but they really aren't because practically every animal on this island is trying to kill you for some reason. But anyway, I came across some crabs, which I stoned to death. Then I did the same to some frogs, which I felt really bad about, but I mean, you gotta level up somehow. Even though I didn't actually know what leveling up does, because the game never seemed to explain it. There's a lot of things that the game just never explains. Like there's these weird like red things scattered around the map. Are they checkpoints? Nope, they're just there. Eventually I did make it to an actual checkpoint. At this checkpoint, I was able to upgrade my rock, and I got a crystal that gave me the tree system ability, whatever that means. After that, I found a cave, and this is where things got dark. You know, because it's a cave. This cave was dark, creepy, and like 80% running. Finally, I made it to this locked door with symbols, and I had to backtrack all the way to the beginning of the cave to find out what order to put them in. Once I did that, the door opened, revealing a giant wall that I was supposed to climb, and climbing it felt like watching a toddler try to climb a ladder. Entertaining, but painfully slow. AI came up with that joke, by the way. I made it to the top, and then there's this lake. I tried crossing it 3 times, and every time I would drown right before making it to the other side. Turns out all I needed to do was just go left instead of right to make it to the checkpoint. And once I did pass the checkpoint, this is where things got interesting because it was time for a boss fight. So in the boss fight, I had to fight this giant gorilla. Immediately when I came into contact with him, he just threw a stick at me. And then I ran it over, and of course it instantly killed me because that makes sense. I respawned and tried again, but this time I fought back. Then he chunked a giant metal spiked ball at me and my game crashed. I tried 2 more times, and both times right as he attacks me, my game would just crash. So this game is pretty much unplayable. On to the next game, Nauticalypse. This game, for having 0 reviews, is actually like pretty good, but it's surprisingly hard. Essentially, it's a wave-based horde game. The premise is you're a captain on a ship, and there's these monsters, and they're all trying to destroy the ship, and if they do, then you lose. You have different materials for building cannons to protect the ship, and buying weapons to protect yourself from these weird little green dudes. I don't really know what they are, but they definitely want to kill you. And every time you kill one, you can pick up loot from their body, which allows you to build more cannons and upgrade them. And the higher the wave you go, the tougher it gets, obviously. But also it gets tougher in a different sense, because after every round you get a free chest that can contain an unlock for a new weapon or a new space to add another cannon. Different upgrades, usually good things. These are things that you want. But every now and then you can get a bad chest and it'll just take away everything you have. Literally everything. I would be on like wave 11, open one of those chests and just lose my weapons, loot collectors, every cannon I had, and I wouldn't have enough money to replace them. So if you get these, it's pretty much just game over. So at one point I just stopped opening these chests altogether because it just wasn't worth the risk. So if the ship does get destroyed, it'll give a countdown for you to escape in a boat, so you can keep all the coins you got, which you can use to buy certain weapons and stuff. And it'll also save any scrolls you collect, and you can use those scrolls to do boss fights. And that was my goal. I just wanted to beat one boss fight, but to unlock the boss fight you have to have 5 scrolls, and you can only keep the scrolls you collect during the game by successfully escaping, which is a lot harder than you think. Plus, these things are rare. You have to build like a collector thing, which will pick up loot from the ocean, and occasionally the loot will be a chest, and occasionally in the chest there will be a scroll. And I needed 5, and every time I would get some, I died. It was hard. I hate to admit it, but it took me like an hour and a half of playing until I successfully collected all 5. Then it was time to battle the ghost ship. Unfortunately, it wasn't the Flying Dutchman though, so that was kind of a letdown. It was pretty much the same as the normal game mode, except instead of sea monsters attacking your ship, it was this huge ghost ship. So I had to build cannons that would shoot it as it went by and hope that I would destroy it before it would destroy mine. It actually wasn't too difficult. I just kind of let the cannons do their thing while I took care of the little green freaks. Eventually I did beat it and I got this epic cutscene. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was pretty good. Simulatte. Coffee shop simulator. Okay, so when you look at this game on the Steam store, it says there are no user reviews, but then there's like 16 reviews, and almost every one is negative, and the ones that aren't are clearly joking. So even though I technically won't be the first review, I'm still gonna play it because I really want to find out if it's actually this bad. Also, after I wrote the review, it said 1 user review, so maybe this does count as a first review, technically. I still don't know why it did that, but anyway, here's some of the reviews that I think are pretty funny. This is so cool, it feels like I was talking to real people. Except if I was on a different planet. Before I played Simulatte, I had a small peepee, no friends, no girlfriend, depression, and no life. These things haven't changed, but the game's pretty good. When I first loaded in the game, I was actually kind of blown away by how many controls there were, so I thought maybe there was actually a lot more to this game than the reviews made it seem. One nice thing about the game though is the lack of loading screens. It just throws you straight in the coffee shop. But what I immediately noticed is there's no sound in the game at all. No music, no ambience, no voice lines from when you talk to people in the shop, just dead silence. So once I spawned in, I decided to order a coffee because it is a coffee shop simulator after all. I asked the lady for a coffee and what the heck is she doing? For some reason, whenever you order something from her, she does this. This is how she makes your order. I have so many questions. As interesting as it is to watch her create your food and drinks, this is actually the boring part of the game. The interesting part is the customers. Yeah, everyone here is basically psychotic, except for this woman. So I decided to sit next to her. I started talking to her, and the 3 options it gives you for conversation are, I'm so happy you met with me on such short notice. What will you are drinking? To which she responds with, let me see, and then just never tells me. And the last option, what do you think of crypto? Which if you ask her that, you find out that she's very into crypto. In fact, she's the freaking CEO of Dogecoin. Which it turns out that apparently everyone is a CEO of Dogecoin. After I was done talking to her, I wanted to see how this other girl was doing, but she refused to talk to me. Probably because she was too busy playing Fortnite. After watching her crank some 90s, I went over to Lenny. Lenny is terrifying. I don't know what his deal is, but he definitely has some issues. He gives me huge school shooter vibes, and I also think he might have stage 4 Crentis, which is a very serious illness. Before he got the chance to murder me, I got out of there, and then I met Jonathan, who also I think might murder someone. Jonathan is determined and very focused on, well, I don't really know what he's focused on, but I do know he's focused, and he never forgets to stretch. That's really important to him. And last but not least, I met Simone, who, well, he doesn't do much. He just really likes to get his exercise in. When I was playing the game, I also found out you can actually pull out your phone and take pictures. Then I also realized that for the background outside, they just used a real photo of the outside of a restaurant. Like, this guy probably has no idea that he's in this game. Anyway, I figured out you can flip the camera, which is terrifying. So I took one final photo with the gang and called it a day. Sticking with the theme of the Island Boys, the next game I played was The Bird. The Bird was underwhelming, if I'm being completely honest. There's really not a whole lot you can do as a bird. When I spawned in, I realized you could just walk around, which it does look pretty funny. So I decided to go for a swim. Once I got out of the water, I was ready to fly. I don't know why the one thing you can do in this game is so difficult, but it's freaking hard to fly. I don't know why. Eventually, like 2 minutes later, I finally figured out how to start flying, and I never felt so free. It was just me, my bird homies, and the fresh air. My first mission, find civilization. I saw a house in the distance, so I thought that was a good place to start. It looked abandoned, but I tried going inside and it wouldn't let me, so maybe they have like a no parrot policy or something. So I flew away because my next mission was to get to the highest point on the island, Manly Mountain. I wasn't sure if the game would actually let me get to the very top of the mountain, but I eventually made it to the top and I felt like a king. Then I flew down to the bottom where I saw a hotel, but there was no sign of any people. Anyway, I looked around at the hotel a little bit longer, and then I fell through the map and was trapped under the ground, so I had to restart. And then it was time for the final mission. I noticed that there was actually multiple islands in this game. I traveled to like 3 of them, and some of them are really far away, so I wanted to see just how big the actual map is in its entirety, and if there's eventually an end, or if it's just infinitely generated. So I embarked on my journey and started flying in one direction. Then after 5 minutes, I realized this was gonna take a while, so I started the next game, Ramen. No, not that ramen. I'm talking about this ramen. This game is really weird. Whenever I started the game, I was bombarded with an insane amount of information that I definitely wouldn't be able to remember. Ramen spends a lot of his time considering how best to spend his last productive days. He recently learned that some silent investors for a small pizza restaurant have secretly hidden their tax returns deep in a privately owned local uranium mine. He insisted on revealing the source of their dirty money to the public, and it's gotten him into some hot water. He snuck his way inside the mine, found out where they keep the records, and just before he strapped the documents to his back in preparation to leave, he thought, will this be a worthwhile escape? He then enthusiastically blindfolded himself for added danger. He didn't know you were coming to help, he barely knows you're there, and he doesn't think he needs you. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to guide and protect Ramen during his passage through the dangerous valley. So essentially the premise of the game is you're protecting this old guy named Ramen who's blindfolded on his path through a bunch of enemies trying to kill him, and if he dies, then you fail. Whenever you start the game, you have to choose the path that Ramen will follow by making 12 different markers on the map from the start to the end. So you can choose certain paths to avoid tougher enemies, but the map layout and enemy locations change every game too, so you can't just pick the same path every time and memorize it. Then once you set your path, you get to choose your loadout. You have $250 to spend on guns, ammo, and abilities. Then once you're ready, it's time to protect Ramen and fight some enemies, is what you would think. But that's not true, because for some reason, you have to wait 5 minutes until Ramen actually starts walking on the path. Yeah, 5 minutes is a long time. This has to be the dumbest thing in a game ever. Like, who wants to just sit there and wait 5 minutes until you can actually play the game? And there wasn't a skip button or anything that I could find, so that's what I had to do. Sit there and wait 5 minutes just to play a game. But I figured this was a good time to see if I made it to the end of the map on the bird, so I went and checked that. After coming back to the bird, I realized it took 25 minutes of non-stop flying until I finally hit a mountain, so that wasn't even the end of the map. I checked out this new island for a bit, and I found a car there and a couple abandoned buildings. Then I flew off into the sunset with the assumption that the map is infinite and I'd never get to reach the end. Then I raided it and got back to Ramen. After the 5 minutes passed, Ramen finally started moving, and he was booking it. I mean, he was going surprisingly fast for an old dude carrying around a dozen books on his back while being blindfolded. Yeah, this guy is impressive and kind of cute, actually. He started making his way to the first marker, and I could already see a lot of enemies, which was going to be a problem. So I pulled out my sniper and started killing the insects, and they were dropping like flies. But the real problem was the bears. I didn't manage to kill any yet, and Ramen was not slowing down. One started heading for Ramen, so I shot him with the sniper, which did hardly anything. So I was panicking and tried shooting them with every weapon I had, and Ramen was losing health fast, so I used my healing ability, but that didn't help much. So I activated his shield so they couldn't do damage to him, and I started mowing down the bears like no one's business. But the shield was running out, so I had to do something quick. I found out I had a bee disguise. I activated the bee disguise, and it turned Ramen into a literal bee, which is pretty funny and honestly pretty OP, because every enemy just kind of ignored him once I did that. Everyone seems to be pretty chill with bees for some reason. Once I realized he was safe, I went further to scout out the path, but then the ability ran out, and all the bears headed straight for Ramen. They took him out instantly. He had a brutal and tragic death. But I wasn't going to let this small defeat stop me. I set a new path, got a new loadout, waited a casual 5 minutes, and tried again. He died instantly. So I tried again and again and again, and after many failed attempts, I finally gave up. This game was just not fun enough to keep trying, and waiting 5 minutes every time was driving me crazy. The next game I played was Escape from Lighthouse, and I gotta be honest, when I first started this game, it was boring. The game is really polished, but you basically just have to line up these reflectors to make the laser hit the button, which opens the door to the next level, and it's pretty much the same thing over and over again, with minor variations in the levels. So it's not the most flattering game, it's really basic and pretty repetitive, but over time, it actually started to really grow on me because it's really simple and pretty relaxing. So I just put on some music and really enjoyed this game. I'm also a sucker for puzzle games, so it's not really fair, but this one quickly became my favorite on the list so far. I also just suck at video games for the most part, so I really appreciated how easy this one was. But it wasn't too easy, like I got stumped for a bit on some levels for sure, but overall, the toddler could probably beat it. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this game, just because it is kind of a boring game to talk about and watch, but I enjoyed playing it, so that's kind of all I have to say about this one. So whenever I started this game, the first thing I did was customize my boxers, because for some reason you can do that. Whenever you start the actual game though, you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to go pee.
I shouldn't have drank that 5th beer. I gotta go.
I picked up a flashlight because I guess this guy just can't afford lights or something, because the power is definitely on, but for some reason a lot of the lights are turned off, so you need a flashlight, which makes the game about not peeing your pants a lot scarier than it really should be. So surprisingly, I actually found the bathroom to go pee pretty quickly, but the only problem was the toilet was missing. But according to the character, this is just something that happens.
Ah, damn it. Not again.
He says he can use the downstairs bathroom, and so I head downstairs, and this is the first time that we're introduced to the thing that actually makes this game hard. Well, kinda. Not really. It's just annoying, honestly. Every now and then, just randomly, your camera will just point down at your pants, and you have to spam a random key on your keyboard. Otherwise, if you don't, then you'll pee your pants, and you lose the game, and you have to restart. Yeah, this gets old pretty quickly, because this happens a lot, like all the time. It honestly just made the game way more frustrating, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun mechanic. So I eventually go downstairs, and this guy is insane. He has 2 doors just boarded up for no reason, like a barricade from COD Zombies, and his explanation...
The boards are back. A nice clean hammer ought to do the trick.
Like this is just something that happens. He also has his refrigerator chained up, and again just gives no explanation why. He also has like a nursery for a baby, even though he says he doesn't even have a kid.
I don't even have a kid. Where did this room come from?
So I kept exploring the house, and I found a crafting table with a hammer, so I assumed that's what I needed to break the boards on the door, but yeah, that doesn't make any sense, because obviously what you're supposed to do is grab a hammer from the washing machine. I used the hammer from the laundry machine to break down the boards on that door, which led me to the garage. And here I grabbed some bolt cutters to open the fridge that was chained up, and the fridge was empty. Of course, all it had in it was a key. I used the key to open the bathroom because the bathroom is locked, I guess. And there it was, the toilet, just waiting to be peed in. Except it was actually a cardboard cutout. Yeah, this game really just pranked me right there. But there was a piece of toilet paper with a code on it, so I put that code in this door, and this is where the game really got weird. Immediately when I open the door, there's just an owl that flies through the door and then starts talking to me about like the last toilet, and then a whole portal opens up, and then the owl tells me that the fate of the universe is in my hands. I thought this was just a game about peeing. I don't know what this game has turned into, but there was a pickaxe in the room, so I grabbed that, and then I went through the portal, which teleported me to space, I think? It doesn't really say where, but the character apparently has been there before.
Haven't been here in years.
So I followed these little portals, and it led me to a water tank just sitting there, which is the first of 3 parts to the toilet. So I placed it down and went back to the house. And then I walked in the garage, and it opened up some giant like tomb thing, which was a whole cave, like Minecraft, like a Minecraft mine thing. So I used the pickaxe to mine some porcelain that was in his garage mine. Once I got the porcelain, I went to the crafting table and I crafted a toilet bowl. I grabbed the toilet bowl and I slapped that John in the toilet, and then I went back and found another boarded up door, which led to a chained door, which led to a door covered in rocks. After getting through all 3 of those doors, it led to one more door, which led to the final piece, the toilet seat. So I grabbed this piece, I headed to the portal and placed the final piece on the toilet, and then finally got to release some of my bodily fluids. Yeah, that was the game. It ended right there. There was no cutscene or anything. It did, however, play this banger of a track for beating the game. You gotta listen to this. After I finished the game, I realized that since the time that I bought it, there were actually 5 other reviews. So while technically I'm not the first review, I'm still glad that I got to play this masterpiece of a game. So there you have it, 8 games with no reviews that now have reviews. Thanks for watching the video. By the way, whenever you clicked on this video, you actually unknowingly signed a legal document that requires you to subscribe. So just go ahead and do that now, or I will press charges. I'm not kidding.